You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat over 50 infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com and use our code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you for this reaction episode as a Big 12 opener is now in the rear view. Just so happens to come on the road, just so happens to come against an in-state opponent, and that makes it all the more sweeter as the Red Raiders top UT 78-67. So many different facets of the game going well for Texas Tech. And while we might have thought they had a puncher's chance at winning this game, I don't know if I saw them controlling it to the extent that they did. You wind up as a double-digit winner. You had extended a lead. UT makes a little run, and then you extend it again. And I think you were leading the game for roughly 27, 28 minutes when it was all said and done. So quite the impressive Big 12 debut for this team. Quite the impressive Big 12 debut for Grant McCasland and his coaching staff, and always meaning a lot to the fan base whenever you can beat the Longhorns, man. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and what is likely to be your last trip to Austin, at least for a while. But, which is kind of sad because I think you've won 5 out of the last 6 in Austin. So that's been the home of many, I say home, pun intended, of many road wins for you. Yeah, I mean, we had talked about this leading up to this game. Texas, they had this ranking next to their name. There's not a lot of reasons why they had this ranking next to their name other than the name of the school and the logo and things like that. It's not a very impressive resume in a lot of the bracketology type stuff. They're right there where Texas Tech was. You're kind of either very much on the bubble or you're just kind of out, but you're on the bubble. But bottom line is this was, I thought Grant did a phenomenal job, and his guys, Breyer, AC, Barnwell, and Coach Smart, they did a phenomenal job of anticipating how they would be guarded and then having answers for that. And then they just stayed, it seemingly felt like a step ahead every time, showing Texas some things that, they hadn't seen before, and anticipating kind of how the ball screens would be guarded or what they would maybe do out of a timeout and having an answer already ready-made for that. And I thought they just, whether they guessed right, whether it just was and some of that comes to, good coaches can put guys like that. That's their best attribute is I can get guys shots, or I can put our guys in a position to have an advantageous situation. However, we need them to make the shot. We need them to make the play. And that's because you had guys making those plays and making those shots, last night. And it was a lot of fun because, again, I think the flaws with your team are still there. You got out rebounded was a concern. However, you live to tell about it. Your depth played better than their depth. Your role players played better than their role players. And typically at home, your role players play a bit better than the other team's role players, which is why most teams win home games. And it was kind of role reversal in this one. Your guys, I mean, Lamar and Robert Jennings gave you 9 total points. That's kind of found money at some level. And on a night where Kerwin Walton doesn't score at all, you have to have those, Chance McMillan scoring in double digits off the bench, not a big surprise. I think you kind of have to have some of that. But, with what Kerwin Walton had been doing, where does the offense come from when you want to stop a run, like get back into a game or maintain a lead, however you want to phrase it. And I thought Lamar and Robert Jennings, like some of those 9 points, may certainly helped you do that.
Yeah, there's no doubt that you want to credit the Jimmies and the Joes, but it was also a night where the X's and the O's made a big difference. I mean, I thought clearly there was a coaching advantage for the guys in black. Was watching the game with the basketball coach, as a matter of fact. And like you said, you got to knock down the shots. But I remember one of the comments that he made during the game was, when you're executing half-court sets like they were, you're going to shoot a high percentage because you're getting a lot of great looks. And at the end of the day, I mean, 53% on the night. I think you're around 50 in the first half, 57% in the second half alone from the field. I mean, there are going to be a lot of times where you're just looking at a guy in a uniform and saying, man, that dude willed his team to a victory. You know, he was on fire. He couldn't miss, whatever it might have been. But I can't be any more impressed, I don't think, than I was with Grant McCasland and his coaching staff. And we've talked about that, last few weeks, last couple of months, that we don't know how talented the team is, how deep the team is going to be, but it really felt like Coach McCasland and his staff were getting everything out of them that they possibly could, and felt that way again when the final buzzer went off last night, man. Put their team in a position to have success.
You have two really good guards. Texas has two really good guards. They really do. Max Asmus and then obviously Tyrese Hunter. And that duo outscores yours by just 2 points, mind you. But these two duos basically accounted for over half of each team's offensive production. But I felt like after you watch this game, your duo outplayed their duo, and that controlling the game, managing the game, knowing when to attack the pick and roll, when to, just because I think that's really, some of the offensive sets that there's not a lot of complicated stuff being done in some cases. A lot of times it is that they're running a lot of pick and roll, and I think with that you have to have guards that, depending on how it's going to be guarded, you kind of, okay, do I pull the trigger here? Do I get downhill? Do I hit somebody in the corner playing off of this? Do I hit the roller? And you have a good feel for that. The best player you've had, really maybe ever in your program, was the master of playing the pick and roll, and that was Keenan Evans. And these two are not that or really close to it yet, but you've got two really tough players that are really have a feel for things right now, and Joe Toussaint and Pop Isaacs. And I think it's funny because I think Joe scored 13 of his 15 points in the first half. He only scores 2 points in the second half, and yet you win by double digits. And he battled foul trouble. And I just think it speaks to, the game that Pop Isaacs had, and just their ability to manage the game when they're in there. And again, it was a low turnover game again. It is pretty fascinating to kind of watch, and then Grant kind of orchestrating this, because they were, and there were some times where there wasn't great execution, but he knew right when to try to attack the pick and roll or call something, or try to get, a shot for Chance McMillan when he kind of saw Texas adjust, and you play off the pick and roll, but it's going to equal a shot from the wing for Chance McMillan. He was able to knock some of those down. It's just, I don't know, a bit of a clinic from a coaching standpoint, I would say.
Yeah, I'd like to see him maybe wearing a lab coat and a stethoscope next time out whenever you're taking on the Cowboys on Tuesday night. But yeah, credit to Joe Toussaint for really sending you into the halftime break with a good feeling. I mean, he was just in an unconscious zone for a few minutes there at one point in the first half, as you mentioned, 13 in the first 20 minutes. And then the same for Pop Isaacs. Not like he was not there in the first half. Got the scoring started, as a matter of fact, but 8 in the first half. Then he has 13 in the final 20 minutes to get them home down the stretch. So those two guards definitely did their part. And you mentioned it, single-digit turnover number, man, on the road, anywhere. That dog's always going to hunt. You only have 9 on the night. You force Texas into 14. Not like that's a catastrophic number for them, but when the margin is going to be very, very thin, obviously those things add up. And I was glad to see that some of those small things Tech had done in the non-conference portion of their schedule that we've touched on that do kind of, give you some encouragement about what this team can be. You did it. And yeah, the home away from home impact is real. Over the last 5 years, 11-3 against the Longhorns overall, but 5 of the last 6, Moody, Drum, wherever. I don't know, blacktop somewhere in a park in Austin. Maybe they'll want to try it next time around, but I was even hearing some Raider powers through the television watching. I mean, I don't know what the environment was like there in person, but certainly Texas Tech, I think, felt very comfortable for whatever reason in the building last night. And I'm kind of wondering, Chris, as we talked about on Friday, how do you assess this team as a team away from home? I don't know exactly what it takes to be successful away from home, but I said on Friday, sometimes playing in another team's building in front of a hostile fan base can kind of be galvanizing for your team, can even bring you maybe a little bit closer. Well, it certainly seemed like they were feeling like a tight-knit group last night. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And football is close to wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook of Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place only a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. So many ways to spice up the action with FanDuel's safe, secure, and easy-to-use app. Are you really even parlaying if you're not visiting FanDuel's Parlay Hub? I doubt it. So get to FanDuel.com/lockedon today. And if you're a new customer, take advantage of $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place only a $5 bet with FanDuel at FanDuel.com/lockedon, official partner of the NFL. Playing in another team's building in front of a hostile fan base can kind of be galvanizing for your team, can even bring you maybe a little bit closer. Well, it certainly seemed like they were feeling like a tight-knit group last night.
Yeah, and they're about to see some, tough venues, going forward in the Big 12 and all that, because this league, again, is continuing to show that it's the best in the country. The numbers show it and all those things. But, an emotional night for probably a lot of folks. Again, last trip to Austin for a while. There's nothing on the books going forward, and you don't know, when the next time will be, if you can come to an agreement on a home and home or whatever it may be. Obviously, with everything surrounding Pop Isaac's, the civil suit out there, and then obviously Texas Tech coming out with a statement on Friday night saying he's still in good standing, he will play. And so we'll everybody else can sort that out on what is there, what is not. But it's probably an emotional night. He got the very first time I went to a Dallas Maverick game in the mid '80s, Reunion Arena, and the Mavericks are playing the Portland Trailblazers. I'm like I would have guessed maybe 12, 13, 11, 10, somewhere in that sweet spot. And every time that the Trailblazers pass the ball to a guy named Kiki Vandeweghe, the crowd's booing. I have to look at my dad and be like, Dad, what's going on with this dude? What? I didn't get it. I didn't really grasp it. It's like, okay, is this what we're doing here? Okay, boo. But I didn't. I had no context. And it's Kiki Vandeweghe, I think, was drafted by the Mavericks, and then he's like, no, I demand a trade. I don't want to go there. So they traded him. The fan base disliked him, but it messes with you. And I thought it seemed like initially, Pop Isaac's, it messed with him a bit, but I think he overcame it. And, probably an emotional night for a variety of reasons with all that going on. And then the finality of this series and all those things. And it's funny because there's not a lot of familiarity. There's not really many Chris Beard connections on either one of these two teams anymore. There's not a lot of, obviously Brock Cunningham is still there. And, there's a few staff members on that staff that stayed with Rodney Terry, which I can't unsee that he's like Gus from Breaking Bad. I mean, this is just who Gustavo Fring is Rodney Terry to me. I mean, it's like, I can't unsee that, but they're after Rodney Terry after the loss and all that. But keep in mind, last year in a impossible situation, he really got that team kind of together, and they really started rolling. Had some success in March, and then it was like, how do you not give the guy the job? And then everybody wanted the guy to get the job, and that's what they did. And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, he's turned into a pumpkin, But I did think, though, that Grant coached a much better game. There's no doubt about that. But Texas is still very talented, and you're going to get them, obviously, at your place. But this was a big one, man. And had you not gotten it done, it would have been okay. You're only going to get so many opportunities on the road to win some of these games against teams that, there's going to be some of these places going to be very difficult to play in. And this was kind of thought to be one, but you got some past history. And I just, there were certain things that you needed to do. And and the low turnovers and shooting the ball well was part of this team's identity. But to give up 15 offensive rebounds and to still win, especially by double digits, is largely unheard of in this league. Yeah. I mean, that usually is a recipe to get your ass kicked. I mean, because if you can't keep teams off the glass, especially in the offensive end, the second chance point category is like 21-5 in favor of Texas. And yet you live to tell about it, which is a credit to Grant and figuring out ways to do it. And we've gone a long time. We haven't mentioned the big fella. He was a huge difference in the game. Warren Washington blocking shots, altering shots, scoring, did some work at the free throw line. He's not the best free throw shooter on paper. I thought his ability to kind of get you and generate some offense, because he's above his scoring average in this game, but by 3 to 5 points, I guess it was. And again, you needed this when a guy like Kerwin Walton is held scoreless, and you hope that he's not regressing back to the mean either, because a lot of the damage that we've seen him do has been on the road. Been at home. This was a game on the road, but I thought Warren and then obviously the Jennings and Lamar combo kind of made up for some of that. But you're not going to get that all the time, and so Kerwin's got to be a part of things. But yeah, shout out to the big fella, man, because he deserves some. He deserves his flowers, I guess, as the kids say these days.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned him, because that was the last difference maker I wanted to get to, man. I thought, obviously, the scoring punch, you had to have it, but his ability to disrupt on the inside, you mentioned the 3 blocks, but how do you quantify all the other shots that he impacted, or even some hesitation to attack the rim maybe that was a result of what he was able to do? And the number that I won't say I love it the most, but I enjoy it just as much as the 15 points and 3 blocks. I think only 3 fouls for Warren Washington. So that allowed him, obviously, to stay on the floor. But, yeah, amazing you were able to do that with Kerwin Walton not making an impact from a scoring standpoint. And I think Rodney Terry's done a great job. Maybe should offer him a lifetime contract. Just my 2 cents. But back to Washington for just a moment, the free throw impact. I mean, I don't know if there's anything any more valuable than what he was able to do there. Only 5 for 8, so you're not writing home about it. But maybe if you're a 7-footer, you're writing home about it. But the team overall – you didn't shoot it great from there. You were only 71% from the line, but you got there 21 times. Texas only gets there 14 times. So hoping that you can make more than they attempt, and you check that box by a slim margin. You made 15. They only shot 14. And to do that in somebody else's house, much less UT's house, good grief. I don't know if the vision was blurry there for some of those guys in stripes, or they thought they might have been in Lubbock. I mean, we know how this goes typically. Anybody see the end of Kansas, Texas Christian at Fog Allen yesterday? We know how this goes, how the calls will break down the stretch. But I felt like you forced your way to some of those calls. And again, that's just a relentlessness that I think you got to credit the team for, those guys on the floor continuing to attack the rim.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of Warren's misses. I mean, he could have probably missed a few others of those, and we'd still be talking about them. But you forget there's times in these games where you get trips to the line, and you look up at the stat sheet at the end of the game, and you count makes and misses and all that. But there's times in games where if you come up empty, it can totally shift the momentum.
Yeah.
Whether you can't add to a lead or cut into it or whatever, especially in road games, and it shifts it. I even thought, and I'm trying to remember, was it Tyrese Hunter? There's 3 or 4 minutes left in this game, and it's kind of still, within question for sure. And then there's a timeout called, and when they come out of the timeout, you're either I think you're up 6, and they come out and he's got 2 free throws, and he misses both of them. And if he makes both of them and it cuts it to 4, and the crowd into it, you feel like momentum has shifted, but he missed. And so credit to Warren for the ones that he did make, and everybody else. Because I think Pop Isaac's being 4 of 4, Chance McMillan obviously being 3 of 4. I mean, some of those guys, it's momentum within the game. Sometimes when you get those opportunities on being able to capitalize, or, like I said, stretching the lead or cutting into it or whatever it may be, or stopping a run, you only get so many chances, and it's like, you can feel momentum slipping away or adding to it if you come up empty or are able to capitalize at the free throw line.
Yeah, a lot bigger, can be a lot bigger than just a simple free throw miss and missing a chance at a point. But the momentum swings, certainly something you can't really quantify in a box score, but you obviously feel it within a game. All right, you get off on the right foot within Big 12 play, back at home from United Supermarkets Arena to host the Cowboys of Oklahoma State in a couple of days. We got time with you to set the table for that one coming up this week on Locked On Texas Tech. On tomorrow's episode, we'll get into some resume conversation, what this one meant for you, which I would like to think, certainly hope, this is not your best win of the Big 12 schedule. As Chris has alluded to, you're kind of occupying a similar category as far as the resumes up to this point. But clearly, when you're taking on the Longhorns and athletics department, more well-financed than the Kingdom of God, always is going to mean something whenever you're able to get a win, especially in their house. But we'll touch on some resume conversation tomorrow. We'll get to some of the results from the Big 12 weekend. And we've also got, in the trenches on a football front, some more help incoming for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders. We'll get to that and more on tomorrow's episode, so hope you will join us for that. Chris, appreciate the bonus time today on a reaction episode, man. Enjoyed it, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
I mean, you're not going to get to do that too many more times, but yeah, that was a double barrel right there. But yeah, enjoyed that. Enjoyed being with you today, man. And yeah, soak this up, folks. And obviously, big games, multiple coming up at home this week for Grant's team. So that's always fun when you go sneak one out on the road. Not that you snuck it, but and then you get to come home and then try to validate it, which we'll talk about all this week.
And hopefully a lot of folks out there reacting like my missus following the final buzzer. Do we have tickets for the next game? And then immediately
Yes.
You're trying to get into the USA. Should be a wild and woolly crowd. Okay, thanks again for joining us out there. Hope to see you back for the next round. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we'll see you for the next one on Locked On Texas Tech.